Hello and welcome to GameSack. You know, the Sega Master System never gets enough love, so I figured I'd review every single game that came out in the United States in a single video. And I'm gonna do it in alphabetical order too, or at least the order that they're stored on my really cool bookshelf from Home Depot here. Cost me nearly $35. Of course, since I have 115 games to cover, that means each review is gonna be around maybe 20 seconds. So, let's get started. First up is Action Fighter. This game is an interesting ripoff of Spy Hunter. Lots of fast scrolling and easy deaths. You can upgrade your vehicle and it even turns into a shooter. Overall, not bad. Aerial Assault. This is a mediocre horizontal shooter where the stages are slow and long. There's not a whole lot of excitement to be had here. Even the power-ups are kind of boring. Afterburner. This was the first 4ME game and also one of the most commonly available games on the system due to its exceedingly high print run. They added these Flying Fortress battle sequences to this one. It's certainly not horrible or anything. Alex Kidd in Miracle World. This was the first Alex Kidd game. You're able to play on foot, on a motorcycle, and in a little pedal copter. The controls are pretty slippery and the physics are kind of weird. I used to like this one a lot more. Alex Kidd The Lost Stars was the second game. This one is actually based on an arcade game. It's not great and it's actually kind of dumb, but you know what? I do enjoy playing it. In fact, I'm going to say that I enjoy playing it slightly more than Miracle World, but that's just me, obviously. Alex Kidd High-Tech World was next. There's nothing high-tech about this game. You're trying to piece together a map to an arcade. I don't know why they would rip up a map in the first place. I've never been able to enjoy this one very much, even with a guide. Alex Kidd in Shinobi World was the last and best Alex Kidd game ever made. It's short, but the trip is absolutely worth it. It really makes me wish that they had combined Alex Kidd with other Sega franchises for even more games. This is basically what I feel Alex Kidd should have been like to begin with. Definitely check it out. This is Alf. If you hate the show, you're gonna hate this game. If you like the show, you're still gonna hate this game. It's a little better once you understand what's going on, but not much. Hell, I'd rather play Alex Kidd High-Tech World. And so would you. Alien Syndrome. This is a rather poor port of Sega's own arcade game. Run around and rescue enough hostages and then make your way to the exit. Then you fight a boss. This game requires that you use an original Master System controller. You can't use a Genesis controller. And let me tell you, that requirement does not help things. Altered Beast. This is another port of an arcade game. Even for its time, this one was really slow and choppy, though I did appreciate the music and the few voices that were in here. It is, however, missing an entire level, the cave stage. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that you probably won't like it. Astro Warrior. This is a vertical shooter with sparse graphics and decent music. You can get some nice power-ups, but you'll be stripped of everything when you die. It's a very early shooter for the system, and it doesn't have a lot of memory, and it's okay. Aztec Adventure. I never played this game very much. You go around killing enemies, and you can even bribe some of them to come with you. I never really liked how this one feels, and the music absolutely drives me nuts. Black Belt. This is a really cool punch and kick game that's a blast to play. I love the scrolling and I love the music. Fight your way through bad guys and then pummel the boss if you can figure out their patterns. Trust me, it's easier said than done. Blade Eagle 3D. This is an average vertical shooter that requires the Sega 3D glasses. There's no 2D mode here and you wouldn't be able to play it in 2D anyway. Your ship can sink into the screen to fight ground enemies and come back up to fight sky enemies. Also, this one probably has the worst 3D effect in any of the 3D games on the platform. Bomber Raid. This game was made by Sega, but it was released by Activision. It's a rather poor vertical shooter with some decent graphics. The music is just way too damn happy for a game like this. This game requires an original Master System controller to play, so don't go using your Genesis controller. California Games. This is a port of the computer game, and it was done by Mark Cerny. All of the events have some really good graphics and even better scrolling. The gameplay is absolutely awful though, which, honestly, is not surprising. Captain Silver. This was ported by Sega from the Data East arcade game. You're off to slay the vile Captain Silver. Many things were cut out of the Japanese version to save memory space. I hate it when Sega does that, and they do that a lot on the Master System. It's not a great game, but it's also not as bad as it looks. Casino games. I can't get into these gambling type of things in real life, and this video game version isn't very interesting either. It does have pinball, because of course that's what you think when you hear the word casino. It's just too bad that it's not very good video pinball. Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse. This is almost a completely different game in most regards compared to the Genesis game. It's absolutely fantastic, and honestly everyone should play it. A lot of thought really went into the various stage designs. I'd say this is a must-own for the system. Choplifter. This is an amazing port of the Sega arcade game, which was much improved over the computer versions. There's tons of fun to be had here. This is still the best version of any game with the Choplifter name meant for home play. I'm not wrong about that. Cloudmaster. This is a somewhat decent horizontal shooter. There's a shop where you can buy your secondary weapons. Mostly it's okay, but everything moves at only 30 frames per second, so it looks kind of choppy. Columns. Yay. I think this might be the Master System's only puzzle game, at least in North America. What can I say? It's Columns. As a game, it's somewhat enjoyable if you're doing well. Cyborg Hunter. This released by Activision is actually a really good game. You're either hunting cyborgs or you're a hunter who is a cyborg. I'll have to give this one a full review sometime in the future. I remember hating it at first, but once you figure things out, it's quite fun. You'll need 2 controllers though. By the way, I want to let you guys know that I'm playing all of these specifically for this episode on real hardware. I'm not using old recordings that I made long ago. And yes, that means this episode is taking quite a while to make. Is that a humble brag? Yeah, I think it probably is. Anyway, let's continue. Dead Angle. This is a port of the arcade game by friggin' Saibu Kaihatsu, creators of the Raiden series. Hello? Hello? Nobody? Okay. You need to shoot down all sorts of gangsters. Somehow, you're able to float in the air to get the guys on upper levels. Honestly though, it's too choppy to be very enjoyable. Dick Tracy. This is a side-scrolling action game based on the Warren Beatty movie. Not only do you have to take out guys in front of you and behind you, but also guys way in the background. It's kind of fun actually. Of course, it's not as good as the Genesis game, but hey, it could be worse. Double Dragon. This was a big deal back in the day because it allowed 2 players to play at the same time. It's not a horrible game, but it is repetitive for sure. I love the music, and it's even better if you can listen to the FM version. Enduro Racer. This port is completely different than the arcade. I mean, other than that, you're on a dirt bike. It's now isometric and really easy. The North American version here is missing levels, so Sega could sell it all in a 1 megabit cartridge. Yeah, Sega loves you. I still enjoy it though. E-SWAT. This one is closer to the arcade than the Genesis version. I used to kind of enjoy this one, but I don't remember it being this difficult, even on easy. In fact, I used to think this game was a cakewalk. I'm not sure what's going on today as I try to play this. Oh well, no big loss. F-16 Fighting Falcon. Man, I never thought I'd pull this turd down from my shelf again. This card game doesn't work on a Genesis, so you have to use a real Master System. I wish it didn't work on anything, actually. You'll need 2 controllers and a high tolerance for piss-poor graphics, sound, and gameplay. Oh look, it's Fantasy Zone again. This is a decent port of the arcade game, but I really missed the map of bases at the bottom of the screen. Was the Master System just not powerful enough to do that? Besides that though, this game is fine. Fantasy Zone 2. This one definitely has better graphics and some redesigned gameplay. I do feel that your default speed is too slow, however. Still, there's lots to explore here, which is actually pretty nice. Fantasy Zone: The Maze! Someone thought it'd be a great idea to combine Fantasy Zone and Pac-Man. In fact, they probably thought it was really clever. Well, it isn't. It's not as horrible as you think, but it still feels extremely derivative. Galaxy Force. Is it possible for a game to be better than the arcade version, even when it comes to the graphics? Yes, it absolutely, most certainly is. That's not the case here, though. This 4 meg entry from Activision is pretty choppy and not very fun as a result. I guess they tried, though. Gangster Town. This is probably one of the best games for the light phaser gun. You need the light phaser as there's no mode to let you play with a regular controller. It's 2-player simultaneous, however, which is fairly unique for a home light gun game. There are great times to be had here. Ghostbusters. This is the same game that you know and love dearly from the NES and other places, but it looks way better here. I bought this one sight unseen back in the day and I hated it at first. But eventually I grew to think it was, well, decent anyway. And yeah, it's decent. Ghost House. This one delivered more than I expected from a Sega card game. Go around and fight all of the vampires and collect the jewels. The jump and punch buttons are backwards, but it's super easy to get used to for some reason. I absolutely love this game. Ghouls and Ghosts. I gave this one a full review a couple of episodes ago. They changed a few things here, like adding shops in order to power yourself up. It took a while, but eventually I grew to really like this one. It's honestly not bad at all. Global Defense. This one is basically a glorified version of Missile Command. Shoot down as many missiles as you can or everything is going to be destroyed. Once you get used to moving your cursor and your ship, this one can actually be pretty fun. I enjoyed it a lot myself anyway. Golden Axe. This is a single-player version of the arcade game where the only character you can play as is the sword dude. It's technically impressive, but otherwise it's not very responsive at all. I suppose it could be worse. Golden Axe Warrior is a great knockoff of the first Legend of Zelda. Nothing will really make you think of Golden Axe, but the exploration and the gameplay are both excellent. You don't even need to hold reset when you power off your game. That's because the Master System is a marvel of technology. Golvelius is another great Zelda clone. Well, kind of. It does have a similar overhead map that you play through, but it also has side-scrolling as well as vertically scrolling levels to break things up. It also features some really cool music. Password save only, though. Great Baseball. Yeah, more like basic baseball. This game is pretty plain, at least as far as the presentation goes. The Japanese version is a little better, but it was released later. You won't find anything special here. Great Basketball. This isn't a spectacular game of basketball by any means, but I really enjoyed playing it with friends back in the 8-bit days. I really appreciated the CD quality voices in the game as well. Wow, it's like the announcer's right in the room with me. Give this one a try. Great Football might be the worst football game that exists. It doesn't follow normal football rules. You only play offense, and if you use more than 4 downs, you just go back 10 yards and start again with a first down. There's also no confirmation when you select a play on this screen. Great Golf is also extremely poor. The physics barely even exist in this game. Putting is also very difficult. To add insult to injury, the game screen draws very slowly. No thank you. Great ice hockey is awful. It requires the Sega SportsPad trackball controller, and it won't work with a normal controller at all. Why? The players move so slow, and the trackball actually ruins the game. There is absolutely nothing good about this one. Great Soccer says Great Soccer on the box and SportsPad Soccer on its title screen. Yes, that's right, this one requires the Sega SportsPad as well, and it's just awful. Other people on the internet have the same issue with everything moving slowly, so it's not just me. The SportsPad just sucks. This game is horrible beyond words. Great Volleyball is the last great sports game, thank God. Guess what? It's not great. It's very difficult to control your players. It also requires a Master System controller, so you can't use a Genesis controller. And that always just makes things a little worse. Hang On and Astro Warrior came with the Sega base system. Hang On is a pretty fun yet basic motorcycle game with 5 different looking stages. And of course, Astro Warrior is Astro Warrior. I already talked about this one. Hang On and Safari Hunt came with the Sega Master System. You couldn't buy Hang On as its own standalone cartridge. Safari Hunt is a game that requires the Sega Light Phaser, and it puts Duck Hunt to shame. You also couldn't get this cool game on its own. I really enjoy it though. James Buster Douglas Knockout Boxing. Here it is, everyone, the rarest game on the console, and it is incredibly expensive. In fact, it's the only game in this episode I had to use an EverDrive to play. It sucks. It's bad. And last I checked, it cost nearly $2,000 complete. Why? It's a crappy sports game, you weirdos! Joe Montana Football. This game is infinitely better than Great Football, but everything is really tiny. But at least it plays like you'd expect a football game to play. Get this, you can even play as the defense. I didn't know the Master System was this powerful. Overall, it's okay. Kenseiden. This samurai game is one that I really grew to love in my youth. Once you get the feel for it, it's tough to put down. I love how my character controls. You can also power up your character and explore a bunch of different stages, which are all fun. I'd consider this a must-have as well. King's Quest. This is a port of an early computer game from Parker Brothers, and it can be kind of fun if you go in expecting that. Learn as you play and remember what to do using the commands. I've always found that I enjoy this one more than I thought I would. Kung Fu Kid. This is another early Sega game that has backwards jump and attack buttons. It takes a bit to get used to, but once you do, the game becomes really fun, if a touch easy. Of course, that might be because I jumped through the entire level. Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. Now, some of you may be asking why I'm not using the FM version of the sound for some games, like Double Dragon, which I mentioned. Well, since this video is all about the games that were released in the US and the FM sound module wasn't, I'd like to keep it true to what we heard here when they were released. Anyway, back to the reviews. Lord of the Sword. I've always wanted to like this action-adventure game. It has a good premise, but it's just so awkward. I think if it controlled more like Kenseiden, it would really help things out a lot. It looks good, and it has some decent music, though. Marksman shooting and trap shooting requires the Sega Light Phaser. In marksman shooting, you simply shoot targets at a shooting range. It gets faster, but nothing ever really changes. In trap shooting, you shoot clay traps, but at least the scenery changes sometimes. Overall, it's not very exciting. Maze Hunter 3D! This one requires the 3D glasses. You move around collecting items and defeating enemies on your way to the exit. The 3D effect is probably the best among all the 3D games, I think. The gameplay can feel kind of slow, but it's still kind of fun. Eventually, the music even becomes good. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. Look behind doors and windows to rescue the children. This one is a lot tougher than the Genesis version, mainly because more enemies toss projectiles and the control isn't as responsive. Miracle Warriors. This is the first true RPG on the Master System. It's weird the way you move around and interact with things. Your view as you move around is extremely cramped, and you can only use one character per turn in the battles, unless I'm doing something incredibly wrong. Still, it plays decently and I've always enjoyed the music. Missile Defense. This awesome game from Mark Cerny requires both the 3D glasses and the Sega Light Phaser. Two countries keep shooting nukes at each other and you need to shoot them all down. Fun to play during the Cold War, still lots of fun now. Fantastic 3D effects here too. Monopoly. This is a video version of the board game. I guess there was some huge demand for this maybe? It's less animated than the NES version. This one's great if you like things that are boring. Montezuma's Revenge. This release from Parker Brothers has you running around gathering treasure while urgently looking for a toilet, I assume. The control is fidgety, and if that's not bad enough, it requires you to use the Master System controller. Ugh. My Hero. This is an infuriating game that comes on a card. Not only is the music extremely irritating, but it's also easy to die and there's no invincibility period after you're resurrected. Ah! Stupid game. The Ninja. Sorry. This is a port of Sega's arcade game called Ninja Princess. I think it actually plays a little better here. I hated it back in the day, but I'm way better at games now, so I love it. Sadly, they removed stages from the Japanese version to fit in a 1 megabit cart here. Definitely give this one a go though. Outrun. This is a cool port of the arcade, which was done by Yuji Naka. He even did the music for this version himself and had Sega create the FM sound module in Japan. This is a great game, though it's weird when the car gets unlocked from the center of the screen sometimes. Otherwise it's Outrun, which means it's great. Paperboy. This is a decent playing version of Paperboy with fairly smooth scrolling. The music is pretty bad though. It looks better than the NES version, but it certainly doesn't sound as good. Overall, it's okay. Parlor games. This one has darts, bingo, and billiards. The game of pool actually controls well here and it's enjoyable. Darts is very difficult to control. I don't know why they couldn't make this as good as Shenmue's darts. Bingo is just dumb. Only people 65 and older like bingo. Penguin Land. You play as an alien penguin trying to get your egg to the bottom of the screen. I've never understood the appeal of this game at all. This one requires the Sega Master System controller and also lets you create your own courses. Could this be considered another puzzle game? Yeah, I don't know. Phantasy Star, hell yeah. This is the best 8-bit RPG and it was truly way ahead of its time. Like way, way, way ahead. Everything about this game is fantastic, from the graphics to the music to the Yuji Naka created 3D dungeons. Alas, my battery here has finally died, so I'll have to replace that. This is an absolutely incredible game. Poseidon Wars, wait for it, 3D! This is a great upgrade to Sega's old Sub-Rock 3D arcade game. A lot of people don't like this one, but I find it really fun. Shoot down planes and other boats with your crosshair. The 3D effect is really good, but a 2D mode is available if you press a button on controller 2. Sega finally learned. Power Strike. This vertical shooter is the first game in the Aleste series. It's really fun, but also extremely tough, adjusting its difficulty the better you play. This was available only through mail order here, and luckily I sent away for it. This one has good graphics, tons of sprites, and fantastic music. Pro Wrestling. Surprised it's not called Great Wrestling. This is a Mexican-style wrestling game with luchadores. I'm positive that's how it's pronounced. The gameplay is mediocre at best. This one is more famous for its weird box art of a guy holding his own head. Seriously, what the hell? Psycho Fox. This game from Vic Tokai is the second game in the series that started with Kid Cool on the NES. The graphics are way better here, but the gameplay is abysmal. The momentum-based controls just kill it. In fact, this series wouldn't get good until Decapitat came out on the Genesis. Quartet.
Did you just say tits?
This port from Sega's arcade game is seriously lacking when it comes to gameplay. The arcade plays much better, but hey, at least the music here is really good for the system. 2 players can play at the same time if your friend is really bored. R-Type. U-Type, we all type for R-Type. Sorry. This is an absolutely incredible port of the arcade shooter considering the limitations of the Master System. Many people don't know that the arcade game was distributed by Nintendo in North America, so it was really cool to see this on the Sega system. It's tough, but super fun. A definite must-own. Rambo: First Blood, Part 2. This is a great 2-player overhead run and gun, but it will absolutely annihilate the uninitiated. Even if you haven't played it for a while, you will get your ass handed to you until you get a feel for it. I still love it though, and I also love the somber music in this one. Rambo 3 requires the Sega Light Phaser. This one plays similar to, but is much better than, Taito's Operation Wolf. Not only that, but it's quite a bit better than the Rambo 3 movie itself. This is a really fun gun game, but it's not, absolutely outstanding or anything. I mean, I enjoy it. Rampage. Activision distributed this game where you need to smash all of the buildings. This port of the arcade game is way better than the NES version. Hell, I even enjoy playing this one more than the arcade. That said, it does get repetitious rather quickly. Rastan. This is a fairly decent port Taito did from their own arcade game. The NES didn't get it, so Sega kids could really rub this one in, and it absolutely wrecked the lives of many NES owners. I love how you can bounce off of the walls in this version. I really like this one. RC Grand Prix. This release by Seismic where you control RC cars is okay. It's nowhere near as good as RC Pro-Am on the NES. It's very basic. You can buy upgraded items for your car, but there are no items on the track like RC Pro-Am. Also, the sound is annoying. Reggie Jackson Baseball. This is a much better game than Great Baseball. I love the improved graphics, gameplay, and especially all of the voices that they added. Some of the music is questionable, but other than that, I've had tons of fun with this one. Rescue Mission. This one requires the Sega Light Phaser. A medic on a handcart is traveling and you must protect him as he tends to our wounded, all the while causing massive fatalities for the enemy. Nice! This is an interesting concept and I actually like it quite a bit. Rocky, look at that title screen. This boxing game takes place with a side view, so there's no way it can play as well as Punch-Out! It's still better than the Buster Douglas game though. This one also has lots of training, which doesn't seem to make much of a difference in your power. Sadly, this game is not tremendously fun. Man, I'm just glad all my games still work. I've only had to clean like maybe 3 or 4 of them to get them to boot. All the rest boot up the first time. Now let's finish this up! Why am I angry? Shanghai. Match the Mahjong tiles to remove them in this game made by Mark Cerny. Not really the game for me, but it plays well enough if you think it looks good to you. It has fairly decent music, I guess. It also requires the Master System controller. Shinobi. This one is loosely based on the arcade game of the same name. This version is slower and with a life bar. The Ninja Magic system has been reworked and honestly it's not even worth using here. That makes the bonus stages where you earn the Ninja Magic useless. It's still a really fun platformer though, and I was never disappointed to own it. Shooting Gallery. This game by Mark Cerny requires the Sega Light Phaser. It's exactly what you'd expect. You're in a shooting gallery. It's pretty challenging actually. It even features Mark Cerny's real voice. Certainly not bad, but definitely not the best Light Phaser game either. Slapshot. Sega decided to give Master System owners a hockey game that didn't require the sports pad. This game is better in every regard by leaps and bounds. There's even some fighting and it's kind of fun. Definitely not bad for a side-scrolling hockey game. Snail Maze. I figured I'd include this one for completeness' sake. It was built into the early Sega Master System consoles. You access it by holding up and pressing both buttons with no game inserted. You're a snail trying to get through 12 different mazes in time. Fun for the whole family. Sonic the Hedgehog. This port of the game was handled by Ancient, the makers of Streets of Rage 2 on the Genesis. That means Yuzo Koshiro was able to do the music. Some people actually prefer this version over the Genesis game. I can understand that, I suppose. Space Harrier. This game was incredible back in the day. The graphics blew away all of my friends who had Nintendo. The visuals haven't aged very well these days, but I still find this one lots of fun to play. The music is timeless as well. Space Harrier 3D! If you thought the first game was slow and choppy, you haven't seen anything yet. It's a lot tougher as a result. It looks great on pause, but that's not much different to when it's actually moving. The 3D effect is mediocre, but there's a well-hidden 2D mode. Spellcaster. This is an action game with adventure or RPG overtones. There's some menus to deal with in some scenes, and the action stages play like a dollar store version of Mystic Defender on the Genesis. I never really got much into this one, and the aforementioned sequel is much better. Spider-Man vs. the Kingpin. This is a port of the Genesis game. It's not bad, though the physics can feel a little weird sometimes, and I always throw webs when I want to punch instead. Honestly, I hate to say this, but it's not quite as good as Spider-Man on the PlayStation 5, and there's really no excuse for that. Sports Pad Football is the worst football game that exists. Take everything you hate about great football, add in the slow-ass Sega Sports Pad, and you have Sports Pad Football. F this game and everything about it. Next! Spy vs. Spy. This game comes on a card. You're supposed to find 5 different items and then escape to the airport. Nothing about this game appeals to me very much. I guess it's just shelf candy. Please, be impressed that it's on my shelf. Thank you. Strider. Such a great arcade, Genesis, and even NES game. Such a horrible Master System game. Please, do not play this game if you're prone to depression. I'm not, yet it still makes me feel like my entire life is empty and worthless. Stay away from this one. Super Mario Bros. 3. This game wait. No. Super Monaco GP. I'm not even sure why they bothered with this one. You're forced to play in a split-screen mode even with a single player. You're also forced to mute the game due to the awful sound quality. Every other racing game on the platform is better than this one. Super Tennis. This card game kind of looks like the NES Tennis. It plays okay, which is surprising. Usually tennis games play abysmally. Make no mistake, I'm not saying that this one plays well. I still don't know the rules of tennis, and the actual sport isn't interesting enough for me to learn them. Teddy Boy. This is a decent game that comes on a card. Basically, you want to shoot all of the enemies, which turns them into little balls for some reason. Collect all of those balls to clear the stage. It's fun for a few minutes. Thunderblade. This game wants to be an overhead vertically scrolling shooter. This game also wants to be a 3D forward scrolling shooter. Sadly, it has no interest at all in being a good game. It's absolutely relentless and completely unbalanced. I do like the weird music though. Time Soldiers. This overhead run and gun from the makers of Magician Lord is pretty cool. Travel through time and destroy everybody, thus ensuring that the future you return to is nothing like you remember. The audio is pretty bad in this one, but everything else is good. Transbot. This card game is a horizontal shooter. Grab the question mark to cycle through a power-up that lasts a limited amount of time. Make your way inside and fight the AT-ST Walker. Don't tell Lucasfilm. Wash, rinse, repeat. Overall, this one is pretty average. Vigilante is another arcade port. This one is a spiritual sequel to Kung Fu. This version plays decently once you get the feel for it, though it can still be a touch frustrating here and there. They changed Madonna's name to Maria. I enjoy it. I think it's a pretty good port. Walter Payton Football. This vertically scrolling football game isn't bad. It's much better than Great Football and Sports Pad Football. It's also better than Joe Montana Football. There are even some nice looking cutaways. It's no Madden, but it's definitely the best football game on the console. Wanted is a fun game that requires the Sega Light Phaser. This takes place in Western times and it feels kind of like an updated gangster town. The biggest challenge is actually trying not to shoot the people who aren't pointing a weapon at you. This is another good gun game. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? On the Master System, that's where. In this edutainment title from Parker Brothers, you need to use clues to find out what country the evil criminal fled to and arrest them in time. It can be enjoyable. This requires a Master System controller. Wonder Boy. This is the first game in the series based on the arcade, and it's decent. Basically, you just need to make it to the end of each area and defeat the boss. One hit and you're dead, despite having a life bar. It's much better than Hudson's Adventure Island on the NES. Wonder Boy in Monsterland. They really changed things up with this entry to include a lot more adventure overtones, and the series is much better for it. This game rarely gets the love that it deserves. You'll need a Master System controller to play this one, unfortunately. Still, this is a fantastic game. Wonder Boy 3: The Dragon's Trap. The series continues to grow with this excellent entry. You change into different creatures with different abilities to get your human form back. I feel that the series peaked with this entry. It's a true classic in every sense of the word, a must-own. World Grand Prix. This is another early racing game for the system. This time you're racing F1 cars. Overall, it's fairly basic and kind of boring. You can create your own tracks though, which I enjoyed doing in my youth. Not as fun as Hang On, but certainly better than Super Monaco GP. East: The Vanished Omens. This is the first game in the East series I ever played. It's certainly good, but the Master System can't quite do it proper justice, I don't feel. You're named Aaron here instead of Adol. It's still worth playing though, it's just slow and grindy. Zaxxon 3D! This one is pretty cool and I like it better than the original arcade. That said, I never cared much for the arcade. There's a 2D mode by pressing pause on the title screen. Once you've beaten the first boss, you've probably seen nearly 90% of what this game offers. It has a decent 3D effect though. Zillion. This is based on an anime in Japan, and it's the closest thing to Metroid that you'll get on the Master System. Run around, collect symbols, and input them into various computers to open up new pathways. Not bad, but I do wish that the jump and shoot buttons weren't backwards. Finally, we have Zillion 2: The Triformation. This is nothing like the first one, and now it's a straight-up action game. The only things it has in common with the first game are similar music, and the jump and action buttons are still backwards. It's not as bad as everyone will have you think. You can still have some fun with it, but it's not great. There you go, that was every single game released in the United States for the Sega Master System. If it's not in this video, it did not officially come out here. Now, clearly the Master System's library couldn't compete with what Nintendo had, but who cares? It doesn't matter anymore. There's no reason why you can't enjoy it for what it is. Long live the Master System. Thank you for watching GameSack. Sega! Crap games today, crap games on the way! Plug into today's crappiest games, like Rocky and Alien Syndrome, with even more extremely crappy games on the way, like Strider, Thunderblade, and Sports Pad Football. The crap keeps coming at ya, only from Sega. Crap games today, crap games on the way.